now, without further delay, let's move straight to the panel discussion, which we will also start with. We will kick off with a short introductory note. First by Mats Sharp from Ericsson.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's great to be here, and I'm really been interesting interventions from all the speakers so far. Just sorry that there was some technical issues, but great to be here. And let me start directly by talking a little bit about why Ericsson is really engaging in this topic, and the quest was really for us as a company. Why are we working with this? And as a sustainability pioneer, as you can see from this slide, we have been working with climate and energy for many years now. We started already in '93 with our first sustainability report and set our first targets in '97. And I think that is really how we work with sustainability. We start with ourselves, and then we look on how we can influence others, both from our industry and then towards the whole society, how digitalization can support things. But today it's really about the carbon capture and storage. And we have over the years received many questions on carbon offsetting. But you heard earlier about the fact that we haven't seen any permanent solutions. And then we realized that it would be much better use of our money to invest in reductions rather than going for offsets. That would be a way of internalizing the investments, but also saving a lot of resources, both internally and externally. So reduction has been our way, and you can see that clearly that we, I mean, between 2012 and 2017, we have reduced our own emissions by 50%, and currently we have a new science-based target that we took the same year, and that is really something that we are looking forward until 2022, another 35%. But thanks to fantastic work, and it's not only due to COVID, we have already now a level of 57%. So more or less a reduction on sort of double the speed from the 1.5 degree pathways. Going back to the carbon capture topics, I think it's very important for us to really look on the permanent carbon storage solutions, and we have our target to be climate neutral by 2030. And we have included business travel in that. And as a global company present in 180 countries of the world, we will continue to need to travel. But we also realize that by 2030, the travel industry or the airline industry will not be ready with the carbon neutral solution. So then we need to have permanent carbon removal solutions that really are a like for like. So if we are using fossil fuel in the travel, then we need to take out carbon permanently and using that cycle instead of the sort of shorter cycle with tree planting, and that will be part of this bigger picture. So that is really why we are so engaged in this topic now, is really to prepare. The second part about it is also that we are looking at how we can support our industry when it comes to the supply chain. So we probably will need also here to use some permanent removals, because we have suppliers in many countries that are not ready by the same timeline that we have, and we are part of an industry with very ambitious goals. So we really want to be part of that. So those are some of the key reasons why Ericsson is as a company engaged very much in these topics. And we are also a science-based company. So when we talk about the trajectories for our industry, it's based on Ericsson research. So we base everything we do on science and on research. So I think that is more or less what I would like to say as an introduction to the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mats. Let's now go straight to introduction remark by Asa Domiej from Axfood, before taking some questions to all our speakers.
Yes, hello. Thank you. I see that you haven't got my background image, but it doesn't matter. I just go on. First, I like to explain that Axfood is a food retail company. We have several food retail chains. The biggest ones are Willys and Hemköp. And as you know, food production is very relevant when it comes to climate impact. And I like to give you some arguments why the solution, the best solution that is being developed by Stockholm Exergi is really interesting. First, it's obvious that it's not necessary. That is necessary with negative emissions. It's not enough to just reduce emissions. It had been otherwise if we had been at the turn of a century, but today it's too late to only rely on reducing emissions. So negative emissions are absolutely necessary. Then argument number 2. We have discussed this quite a lot in Axfood, that we really like to rely on climate compensation, that climate compensation should be real. And we think that the BECS solution, I mean, it can be calculated and controlled, and I mean, we can be sure that carbon dioxide is really been put away from the atmosphere, even it goes the way with it starts with biofuel, and it's not I mean, it's not extracted from the atmosphere, but we think that the solution with using biofuel, it's really safe, and that it should be possible to certify as well. And another argument is that we can do climate compensation in our part of the world. And it's easier to explain something that is really happening here, and not being I mean, some project that we can't be safe, that they are real in other parts of the world, and also really difficult to explain to our customers. When it comes to the project with Stockholm Exergi, it's actually possible for customers to visit the site and see how it really works. And number 4, the fourth argument is also important, that it's really complicated or almost impossible for the food sector to come down to zero. And the reason is all the biological processes, both the processes within cattle and in the soil. I mean, it's possible to compare it with the cement industry and all the concrete used for buildings. They have their chemical processes, and we have the biological processes. But of course, when it comes to biofuel, Anders Egelrud discussed a little about how to use biofuel. And I completely agree that it's very important what kind of biofuel you use in this kind of solution. And it's necessary that as much as possible of the forest is used for timber, because then the carbon is captured for a long time within buildings. And Anders Egelrud said that, for example, sawdust is used for burning in their solution. I mean, it could be possible to take it one step further, and it would be even better to use the sawdust for example, chipboards or other products being used for a long time and then at the end used in this kind of factory being transferred into energy. And another thing that could be discussed in system perspective is how we work with Swedish forestry. For example, when it comes to minimum felling age, maybe it should be raised maybe 10, 20, 30 years, but I'm not sure. But it's necessary to always have the whole system perspective, look at forestry, energy solutions, and capture solutions at the same time. That was all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Asa. This was very, very insightful and also detailed and answered a couple of, well, technical questions or asked a couple of technical technological option related questions. I think now we could move all together with all the speakers that are still with us. So Alberto, Anders, Sabine, Mats and Asa, and we are awaiting Jakob. And please give me just 1 second to double check if by any chance we could have the minister connecting with us over the phone now. No, I don't see a clear answer to that question. Okay, in that case, let's try to have a quick panel debate in these circumstances. And I see Sabine is doing a great job answering a lot of technical and financial questions in the Q&A panel. So thank you for that already. Let's maybe proceed like this. Let's look at something very general level. There was a question from Robert Hoglund that could actually apply to all of you, and all of you could sort of respond and rank, because it's a sort of a quiz. What is the most important thing that the companies can do to support carbon removal? And we have 3 options. Purchasing removal credits, giving out grants for R&D, or pushing for policy change. So looking at the companies like yours, what do you see as a most valuable and, let's say, impactful activity? Is it simply purchasing what is there already or on the market, supporting R&D in some solutions that have, for example, great scalability potential, like, for example, we have enhanced weathering or different uses of biochar that are maybe cheaper than some other technological options that are very scalable, but that still need quite a lot of R&D. Or a third option, pushing for policy change. Do you see some sort of like a demand side coalition speaking with one voice towards policymakers as an effective, well, vehicle for getting us in there? So this is a question to, well, everyone and all of you. And maybe we can go in the order of, well, Anders, would you like to start?
Yes, please. Thanks, Anna, and thanks for the question. I think if I should emphasize something, which I also emphasized during my presentation, I think the policies need now to be in place. The framework for negative emissions need to be in place. The technology is there enough already, I would say. Of course, there is needed support also for the start-up facilities, which we are now trying to be in full scale. But I think the most important, anyhow, is to find a platform, regulation, policies, which make sure that negative emissions can be certified. They can be certified with occurrence and also trustworthiness, so that we know that this is a permanent negative emission certificate, and that can also be handled both in nations and between companies. That I think should be in place really soon. And as I mentioned during my presentation, I call this more a sync and trade system, which I think is necessary to have as a complement to the emission trading system.
Yes, thank you, Anders. Asa, what is your take on that? Do you think it's about R&D, direct purchases, or policy push? If you had to name one or a ranking.
Oh, sorry, no. Absolutely to push for political decisions. I mean, traditionally, many companies have been trying to oppose and stop political decisions instead of trying to put pressure on politicians to take the actions that have to be taken. So I think that pushing for policy change is more important than the other two. But it's not necessary to choose just one of the three alternatives. Of course, we can do other things as well.
Of course. Mats, what's your opinion here?
Yeah, I mean, just because Anders and Åsa said the same thing, I think I need to say something different. No, I think my experience from working with this type of regulation is that it is in fact a very good idea to start by doing something and starting to scale the solutions to demonstrate that it works. So from that perspective, I think the investment and the starting and then it's not buying something that is already there, because there is nothing there from an Ericsson perspective. I mean, we believe in permanent removals, just like Åsa said and we have heard earlier, and there is no existing solution at scale. So we need to scale the existing solutions, and I think that this one by Stockholm Exergi is in fact an interesting one. So to start in parallel to the policy discussion, also to demonstrate that there is a market under development, that we are ready to sort of take the next step. That impacts the policy maybe even more than just lobbying for policy change. So I think that they are more or less equally important, and we shouldn't forget that the power of pioneers and companies that take a lead is very, very strong. So I think that's why I just want to moderate the answer a little bit and say that I think that is in fact very important.
And anyway, there is no contradiction between pressure on the politicians and developing solutions. We can do both.
Yes, thank you, Matt. Okay, Alberto, are you still with us here?
Yeah, I'm still here, and I was definitely going to follow the line that Asa was mentioning. I think these kind of answers are not mutually exclusive. We definitely see a need for the three options that you put on the table. So we are definitely pushing for research and development. We are pushing for kind of better policy and engaging with policymakers, and we are definitely continuing to buy to stimulate the market. One additional thing actually that we consider very important is to improve all of the monitoring and the verification of the solutions, because what we see is that there is an issue there in terms of really creating trust. People really need to see that the kind of the solution that they are buying is effective. People need to be able to verify what they are doing. So that's an area that I consider very, very important in parallel to the standards.
Okay, understood. Yes, this was also to check with you directly, because, well, this is a company with a huge experience in purchasing. Like, to what extent do you see value in investing maybe in early solutions that where your purchase would not be that much a purchase of a actual credit already, but a contribution towards this R&D that would help with with, for example, establishing measurement of the rate of removal by a certain technology. So more into direction like Stripe and perhaps Shopify model, sometimes looking more into really less mature projects, just to get them off the ground and help them not scale but get to the better TRL levels. So what is your take on that, maybe to follow up quickly?
Yeah, so very quickly, we are really trying to have a kind of a balanced portfolio, and as I was saying in the presentation, currently the portfolio in terms of buying kind of removal is very much biased towards the nature-based solutions because they are more available. But one thing that we are doing on top of just kind of buying carbon removal is we have created a 1 billion fund of the Climate Innovation Fund to really support innovation and to really support kind of companies that are trying to do kind of technology removal. So we see the two things coming hand in hand, and we most definitely want to stimulate actually the innovation side of things.
Of course. Yes, this is what I actually was hinting at. And Sabine, do you, I see you answered to this question already in the chat, so thank you for that, but do you have anything to share with the audience and other participants?
Yes, so I don't want to make the monitoring point again because Alberto was actually very eloquently making that point, but maybe I can pick up on what Mats was saying already on the role of pioneers, just to strengthen that point a bit. I think what we're already seeing is that despite the lack of incentive structures and a larger CDR governance architecture, companies are already moving into this space. So sort of taking advantage of the couple of support mechanisms that are already out there, and trying to make a difference, also by looking for niche markets and what have you. So I think that's actually a quite positive sign that people are moving in there, and there might actually also be a little bit of a difference in priorities for companies that themselves want to move forward to generate negative emissions, and companies that are looking to sort of offset residual emissions, to sort of accelerate innovation processes and so on, that would then be more focused maybe on the R&D part, and would be more focused on buying removals. But I think we had basically both perspectives already today, and I found that very interesting. I learned a lot on different perspectives. Thanks.
I think a lot has been said about how do we incentivize these things. I think what is needed is stability and longevity. And from a political perspective, what we can contribute with is transparent systems for the legal issues that arise when it comes to exporting the carbon that needs to be stored, as well as finding a system for introducing financing into this. I think there's been a lot said at this end from a private company perspective, but at this point of time, I think it's very clear that government support is needed to achieve negative emissions, and that we need to move rather fast to scale up these things. Not all processes will be ready initially, but we need the system in place. And the Swedish experience has been that once you have the system in place, once we've set out the ground rules for how to finance negative emissions, it is a lot easier to scale up. And often things move a lot faster than the politicians expect. Because once we've got the system in place, once we've got finance in place, then the private sector moves quickly and innovation happens. And I think that's the perspective that politicians need to approach this issue with. And it's been very inspiring to listen to the conversations today, because clearly there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of innovation, and there's a lot of possibility here. And when it comes to climate change, often things look quite dire. We're in a hard place right now, but it's refreshing to approach that difficulty from a position of looking at what can we do. And I think that's been achieved here today.
Thank you, Jakob. I think this was great as a concluding remarks for our panel, because we really have to wrap up now. So thank you, everyone. Big thank you to all the presenters and speakers, and to active audience very interested in certain aspects of our presentations. More broad concluding remarks, let's say, will come in a summary report from the event, and the recording will also be made available. So thank you, everyone, and it was a pleasure and a very good experience to run this event and learn so much from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.